Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles. I still remember the way she looked at me that night. Like I was nothing. Like I was just some inconvenient stepping stone she had outgrown. Lauren had always been good at wearing masks. For 7 years, she played the role of the loving wife, the partner who stood by me, the woman who said she wanted to build a future together. But all it took was one phone call, one life-changing revelation, and her mask slipped. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when she got the news. She was scrolling through her phone like always, barely engaging with me. I wasn't even paying attention until I heard the way her breath hitched. She shot up from the chair, hand clamped over her mouth, eyes darting over the email on her screen like she couldn't believe what she was reading. "Oh my God," she whispered. I turned, drying my hands on a dish towel. "What's up?" She slowly lowered her phone, looking at me like I was a stranger who had just materialized in our home. And then she laughed. A giddy, breathless, almost manic sound. "My Aunt Margaret," she said, voice trembling with excitement. She left me everything." I frowned. "Everything?" Lauren nodded frantically, clutching the phone to her chest. "Her entire estate. The house, the cars, She sucked in a sharp breath. $10 million, Alex. $10 million. My stomach twisted. Aunt Margaret was the family's eccentric old matriarch. Distant, wealthy, and notoriously unpredictable. She had no kids of her own, and though she and Lauren were never particularly close, she must have decided to leave everything to her in the end. Lauren was shaking, her mind already racing 100 miles ahead. "I need to call my lawyer," she muttered, spinning toward the hallway. "I need to." Something in me told me to stop her. I didn't know why, but a cold, creeping feeling settled in my gut. "Lauren, hold on a second," I said. She barely spared me a glance. "What?" "Before you start making plans, maybe we should sit down and—" That's when she cut me off with a laugh. A sharp, cruel laugh that I had never heard from her before. "Sit down and what, Alex?" She turned fully, her lips twisting into a smirk. "Talk about our future? Plan things together? Why the hell would I do that now?" I froze. Her tone, her expression. It was like I was seeing her for the first time. She took a step toward me, eyes gleaming. "I don't need you anymore, Alex," she said, almost breathlessly. "Do you get that? I've been stuck in this marriage, in this life, because I didn't have another choice. But now I do." I stared at her. "You're serious?" Her lips curled into something close to pity. "I never loved you," she said, tilting her head. "I just settled. You were safe, stable, a stepping stone until something better came along." She let out a sigh. "And now it has." Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not violently, just a quiet, clean break. "You're divorcing me?" I said, voice eerily calm. "Obviously," she scoffed. "And before you get any ideas, don't think you're getting a dime of this money. The inheritance is in my name alone. You have no claim to it." I could have argued, could have told her how disgusting she sounded, could have fought, raged, screamed, but instead I just smiled. She faltered slightly, brow furrowing. "What the hell are you smiling about? You want a divorce?" I said. "Okay." She blinked. "Wait, what?" I said okay. I shrugged. "You can have your money. Go live your new life. I won't fight you on it." For the first time that night, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. I expected you to be more upset," she muttered. "Oh, I am," I admitted. "I just don't see the point in wasting my energy on someone who never gave a damn about me in the first place." Her confidence returned immediately. "Good," she said. "That makes this easier. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. You'll get a fair split of our current assets. But the house," she grinned, "that's mine." I tilted my head. "Oh? And what makes you think that?" Her grin widened. "Because I'll buy you out," she said smugly. "Once the money clears, I'll give you an offer, one you won't refuse. You can take the payout and start over. Maybe even find someone else who's willing to settle for you." I just nodded. "Sure. We'll see." She barely noticed the way I phrased it. She was too busy, practically vibrating with anticipation, already picturing her new life without me in it. She didn't know. She had no idea. I wasn't going to take her money. I wasn't going to fight her over the inheritance. I was going to let her walk right into her own destruction. Because while she had been celebrating, her greed blinding her to reality, she had forgotten one small thing: the will, the conditions, the hidden truths about that money. And by the time she realized the true cost of her betrayal, it would be too late. For now, I just watched her gloat, because this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Lauren had no idea. She paraded around the house with an air of untouchable arrogance, practically floating on the high of her newfound wealth. She was already making plans, talking about moving to the city, buying a penthouse, finally surrounding herself with people on her level. Her level. That one stung more than I cared to admit. She had spent years pretending to be happy, letting me believe we were building something real. But now that she had money, she was free to reveal who she really was. And who she was: a woman too blinded by greed to see the abyss she was walking into. I played my part perfectly. I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I let her believe she had won. She was so convinced that I was pathetic, that I was just another obstacle in her path to a better life, that she didn't even question how easy I made things for her. She moved forward with the divorce paperwork almost immediately. The moment she had access to the inheritance funds, she wanted me out, which was perfect, because what she didn't know, what she never bothered to consider, was that I had already been working behind the scenes. Lauren assumed she could just buy me out of the house, that once she got the money, she could make an offer, and I'd take whatever scraps she threw my way. But here's the thing. The house wasn't hers to buy. Not legally. She never bothered to read the fine print when we bought it. I did. Lauren had assumed we owned it together, that our names were equally listed on the deed. But she never really cared about the details. She was too busy focusing on appearances. As long as the house looked expensive enough for her standards, that's all that mattered. What she never realized: the house was in my name alone. I made sure of it before we even got married. It was a security measure. A quiet decision I made after watching a friend get financially destroyed in his own divorce. Back then, I didn't think I'd ever need it. Now, it was the best decision I had ever made. She had no leverage, no bargaining power. She could keep her inheritance, but she would be the one leaving this house. Of course, I didn't tell her that right away. Not yet. Instead, I let her continue planning her fresh start. She called realtors, looked at million-dollar condos online, went shopping for designer clothes. She even started acting single before we were officially divorced, going out to celebrate with her new high-class friends, drinking top-shelf liquor, throwing money around like it would never run out. And while she was busy basking in her own delusion, I was quietly pulling threads in the background. I made an appointment with a divorce attorney, not just any attorney, but a specialist in contested assets. I laid everything out: the house, the finances, the inheritance loopholes I suspected. The lawyer confirmed what I had already started to piece together. Lauren's inheritance wasn't as ironclad as she thought. The will had stipulations, conditions that had to be met before the full amount could be accessed. Lauren was so blinded by greed that she hadn't actually read the fine print. But I had. While Lauren was busy showing off her new life, I dug deeper. Aunt Margaret had been a calculating woman. Her wealth wasn't just some jackpot to be handed off without restrictions. There were clauses. Lauren couldn't sell any major assets for at least a year. She had to remain married or in a legally recognized partnership for a set period. Any act of infidelity could lead to a reevaluation of the inheritance. It was the last clause that made me smile. Lauren was already breaking the rules. She had no idea. The best revenge isn't about taking action immediately. It's about letting them destroy themselves. I documented everything. Every reckless purchase. Every date night she had with her new friends. Every slip-up she made thinking she was untouchable. Lauren had no idea how public her new lifestyle was. Social media posts, credit card transactions, photographic proof of her infidelity, all neatly compiled. And I wasn't the only one watching. A week before the divorce was finalized, I finally played my first major card. Lauren came home buzzing with excitement. "I just spoke with the bank," she said, practically glowing. "The money is about to hit my account." I sipped my coffee, leaning back against the kitchen counter. "That's great," I said. She grinned. "So let's talk numbers. I'll offer you $500,000 for the house. That's more than fair, Alex. You'd be stupid not to take it." I just smiled. Then I said the words that made her entire world start to crack. "Lauren, you don't own this house." The color drained from her face. "What?" I set my coffee down and folded my arms. "You assumed we co-owned it. But legally the house is mine. My name is the only one on the deed." She let out a sharp, nervous laugh. No, that can't be right." I pulled out the documents, laid them on the table. "Take a look," I said casually. Her hands trembled as she flipped through them. I watched her eyes scan the text, watched the realization slowly dawn on her. You son of a..." I cut her off. "You wanted a divorce, Lauren, so you can have it. But you'll be the one leaving. This house, it stays with me." Her breathing turned ragged. "But I was going to..." "You were going to buy me out with money you don't even fully control yet," I interrupted. "Money that, if I'm not mistaken, might not be as free as you thought." The panic in her eyes was delicious. I didn't push further. Not yet. I just let her sit with it. Let her feel the walls slowly closing in. Because this was only the beginning. I still had one final card to play. And when I did, Lauren's entire world was going to come crashing down. Lauren didn't take the news well. For the first time since she got her inheritance, her arrogance cracked. She didn't scream, not at first. She just sat there, staring at the house deed in my hands, her face pale. But I thought. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. "You thought you could just throw some money at me and make me disappear," I said calmly. "Turns out, you don't have as much power as you thought, do you?" She swallowed hard. "I'll fight this," she said, trying to regain control. "I'll call my lawyer." "Go ahead," I shrugged. "But unless your lawyer has a time machine to undo the legally binding contract, they won't be able to change a damn thing." The reality started to sink in. Lauren wasn't kicking me out. She was the one losing the house. And that was only the beginning. I let Lauren stew in her own panic. I wasn't done yet. Over the next few days, I watched as she scrambled to regain control. She spent hours on the phone with her lawyer. Hours. I didn't have to eavesdrop to know what they were telling her. She had no legal claim to the house. Her only option? To find somewhere else to live. That wasn't supposed to be a problem, right? She had millions now. But what she didn't know, what I knew, was that her entire inheritance was built on a house of cards. And it was about to collapse. Lauren thought she had free reign over her newfound fortune. She didn't. One morning, she stormed into the house, her face tight with frustration. "I need to talk to you," she snapped. I took my time setting my coffee cup down. "Good morning to you too." Her jaw clenched. "I just got off the phone with the estate lawyer." "Let me guess," I said, tilting my head. "They told you about the conditions?" Her face twisted with rage. "You knew." "Of course I knew, Lauren. Unlike you, I actually read the fine print." The realization hit her like a freight train. "You?" She sucked in a sharp breath. "You let me make a fool of myself. You let me think I had full access." "Didn't let you do anything," I said smoothly. "You were too busy celebrating to ask the right questions." Her hands clenched into fists. "You should have told me." I raised an eyebrow. "Why? You made it very clear you didn't need me anymore. Why would I help you?" She had no answer. She was too busy panicking over what she had just realized. Lauren didn't really inherit $10 million. Not in the way she thought. The money was locked in a trust. She only had access to a quarter of it up front. The rest came with very specific conditions. She couldn't sell any of her inheritance assets for at least a year without permission from the estate executor. She couldn't be involved in any public scandals that could tarnish the family name. And the best part? Any evidence of infidelity could trigger an investigation into her moral character, which could put the entire trust into legal review, meaning she could lose everything. Lauren had already broken those rules a dozen times over. She just didn't know I had proof. Not yet. Lauren needed a new place to live. Fast. She started looking at luxury condos, thinking she could buy one outright. But when she tried, the estate lawyer blocked the transaction. She still had money, millions even, but not enough to buy the life she thought she deserved. And her spending habits were catching up to her. She had blown through a huge chunk of her upfront inheritance. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, luxury vacations. She thought the money was endless, but reality was setting in. Her creditors started circling. The lawyer's warning calls got more urgent, and suddenly, she wasn't so smug anymore. I waited for the perfect moment, and then, I struck the final blow. Lauren came home one evening looking completely drained. She had bags under her eyes, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. She had finally started to crack. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. "You look stressed," I said casually. She glared at me but said nothing. "Rough day." Depressed. She let out a bitter laugh. "You wouldn't understand." I smirked. "Oh, I think I do." I slid a manila envelope across the kitchen table. She eyed it warily. "What's that?" "Open it." She hesitated, then ripped it open. Her entire world stopped. Inside were printed photos, pictures of her out at fancy dinners, wrapped around her new lover, screenshots of explicit text messages, a timeline of every hotel she had checked into while still legally married. Her breath hitched. Where did you?" "I told you," I said, leaning forward. "I read the fine print." Lauren's hands shook as she flipped through the evidence. "You were cheating while still married," I said, voice calm but razor sharp. "And guess what, Lauren?" I tapped the top page of the legal document. "Your inheritance has a morality clause." She sucked in a sharp breath. "If the estate lawyer sees this," I continued, "they could freeze your trust, possibly even strip you of the entire amount." She looked physically ill. "Tell me," I said, enjoying the moment, "do you think your lawyer is going to risk his reputation defending a client who violated an explicit inheritance condition?" Her mouth opened, closed. She had no answer, because she knew I was right. Lauren tried to fix it. She tried to run damage control, but the wheels were already turning. Her lawyer called her the next day, and I watched, smiling to myself, as her face went completely white. She wasn't getting kicked out of the house. She was getting kicked out of her inheritance. Her millions? Gone. Her lavish future? Destroyed. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. She did it to herself. Now all I had to do was watch her fall apart. Lauren was drowning, and for the first time in her life, there was no one left to throw her a lifeline. Her lawyer's call had been the final nail in her coffin. Whatever illusion she still clung to about her untouchable wealth was obliterated. The morality clause in her aunt's will had been triggered, and that meant everything was under legal review. Her inheritance? Frozen. Her assets? Locked down. Her dream of a glamorous, carefree life? Shattered beyond repair. And the best part? She did it to herself. I sat in the living room, pretending to read the news, when she finally broke. She had spent the last 2 hours pacing, making frantic calls. First to her lawyer, then to some high society contacts who had been more than happy to celebrate her wealth just a week ago. No one answered. She was on her own. I could hear her labored breathing as she stood at the edge of the hallway, staring at me. I ignored her. She cleared her throat. "Alex." I slowly turned the page of my newspaper. She hesitated. I could hear her swallowing her pride, choking it down like a bitter pill. "I need to talk to you." I sighed dramatically and finally looked up. "Is this about how you're broke now?" Her face twisted with anger before she forced it into fake humility. "I'm not broke. The money is just being held up temporarily." I smirked. "Right? Held up. frozen, locked away. Call it whatever you want. She flinched but quickly recovered. Listen, I know we haven't been on the best of terms. But, she exhaled shakily. I need somewhere to stay. I stared at her, letting the silence stretch. Then I burst out laughing. Lauren's face turned red. This isn't funny, Alex. I wiped a fake tear from my eye. Oh, but it is, Lauren. It really, really is. Her lips pressed together so tightly they went white. I stood up, crossing my arms. Let me get this straight. You inherited $10 million, dumped me, rubbed it in my face, told me I was nothing. And now that it's all slipping through your fingers, you expect me to let you stay in my house. Her hands balled into fists. It's my house too. Wrong. I stepped closer. It's mine. Legally. And you? You don't even have enough money to afford a cheap motel. She swallowed, her bravado slipping. Alex, please, she said, her voice breaking for the first time. I don't have anywhere to go. I tilted my head, pretending to think about it. Then I opened the front door. Sounds like a you problem, I said. Get out. Her eyes widened. Wait, you can't just. I can. And I am. I gestured to the door. Now. She stumbled backward, genuinely shocked. She had never imagined that I would actually throw her out. That's the problem with people like her. They think they can burn every bridge and still find a way across. Not this time. She looked one last time at me, her face a mask of disbelief and desperation. Then she stepped out, and I shut the door in her face. Lauren had one last hope, her high society friends. But money attracts leeches, not loyalty. The moment they sensed weakness, they disappeared like roaches when the lights come on. She tried calling her new friends. They ignored her. She tried staying with one of them. They refused. Without money, without power, she was nothing to them. Lauren was forced to downgrade her life in a way she never imagined. The woman who once bragged about buying designer clothes without looking at the price tag was now sleeping on her cousin's lumpy couch in a small apartment across town. The woman who once mocked people for driving old cars was now taking the bus. The woman who laughed in my face when she thought she had one was now avoiding my gaze whenever she ran into me in public. She was ashamed, and she should be. I didn't hear from Lauren for weeks, not until I got one last message. A text. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I replied. About what? She responded almost immediately. I made a mistake. I smirked. No shit, Lauren. I just want to see you. Please. I thought about it. Then I blocked her number. There was nothing left to talk about. She made her bed. And now, she could lie in it. Lauren never learned how to be alone. For years, she built her life around climbing higher, stepping on whoever she needed to in order to get what she wanted. And when she thought she had finally won, she burned every bridge she had ever walked across. But the thing about burning bridges, you better make damn sure you never need to go back. And Lauren? She had nowhere left to go. The last desperate attempt. Months passed. I moved on. Really moved on. The divorce was finalized. The house was mine, officially, legally, and forever. I started focusing on myself, on my career, on living well. And Lauren? She was stuck in survival mode. The inheritance was completely revoked. The estate lawyer made it official. The morality clause had been triggered beyond any reasonable defense. The wealth she thought would keep her above everyone else was completely out of reach. She had nothing. No money. No luxury. No power. And then one day, she came back. Not physically. Not knocking on my door like some movie cliché. But through an email. It was long. Too long. A desperate, rambling mess of apologies and self-pity. She told me she was sorry. That she realized her mistakes. That she never should have left me. That she thought she wanted money and power, but what she really wanted was a home. That she missed me. That she wanted to talk. Just once. I stared at the email for a long moment. Then I closed it. And I didn't respond. The true revenge. Indifference. People think revenge is about rage. About destruction. But the best revenge? Indifference. Lauren wanted me to engage. She wanted me to yell, to argue, to give her some glimpse of power over me. She wanted a reaction. I gave her nothing. I didn't respond. I didn't acknowledge her existence. I moved forward without her in a way that made it clear. She never mattered. The final twist. One day, I ran into someone unexpected. Lauren's former lawyer. We weren't friends, but he recognized me. And as we exchanged small talk, he smirked slightly. "You heard about Lauren, right?" he asked. I raised an eyebrow. "No. What about her?" He shook his head. "Man. Let's just say karma hit her hard." Apparently, Lauren had burned through every last favor. Her cousin kicked her out after one too many unpaid bills. She tried to sue the estate to reclaim her inheritance, but her case was laughed out of court. And now, she was living in a cramped apartment with 3 other people she barely knew, barely scraping by. For a woman who once thought she was above everyone else, she was now beneath the people she used to mock. I just smiled and moved on. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.